Hey there everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another video. This is your host, Prickly Hedgehog, of course, and this is part 2 of third-party developers for DCS World. Now, a few days ago, those of you familiar with my channel will remember that I did some updates on some of the third-party developers for DCS World, which received a lot of feedback. The general consensus is that a lot of people, a lot of you out there, are very excited about the possibility of the Typhoon coming to DCS World and the fact that it is actually in development as we speak. You hope that it will be in the game, and there were a lot of discussion points about that particular aircraft and flight platform, and a lot of other comments and opinions too about DCS in general, Microsoft Flight Simulator, which is pending for 2020 here in mid-August, and all sorts of really interesting discussion points, and I really appreciate all the common sense opinions that came about from that last video, so thanks for that. Also want to appreciate all the people that are liking and subscribing, sharing, and so on and so forth. It really helps keep the channel chugging along. So in fairness, today I wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the other developers also involved with projects and modules with DCS that I felt needed mentioning, not because I was overlooking them last time, but I felt that I didn't want to favor any particular developer here. I have no particular affiliation. I'm not speaking on anyone's behalf. This is all my own interpretations of information that is going on and pertinent and relevant to the game, but I just felt that there were some things that needed to be expanded on as well. Now, before we get to that proper, I want to apologize firstly for a boo-boo, a factual incorrect statement. I had mentioned that the Iris-T missile was a replacement for the AIM-7. Now, my good friends, very good friends over at Fights on Aviation, check out their website. It's well worth looking at. Full of information from former pilots, interviews, and all sorts of cool stuff, not only about the F-14, which is one of the focused aircraft there, but also various other aircraft as well. They corrected me and said it is in fact the AIM-9, and I know other people also pointed that out too, and I apologize for that error. Now, I had also, second part of the apology, had alluded to the fact that Razbam is one of the quietest of the developers, and this is not entirely accurate. In fact, I've noticed that as I went back over some of the comments and reviewed my video, and as part of reflective practice, I suppose, it depends on which platform you look for or look through to gather information. And I noticed that quite a few developers share snippets on their social media sites rather than just managing their websites. Obviously, I grew up with the website being the most important piece of interaction in terms of news and information on a particular developer, but we're seeing a lot more that this is not necessarily the most convenient way to actually put up information on a website and manage a website. In fact, coming back to the Typhoon, True Grit Virtual Technologies, who remember it's a former German pilot, Eurofighter pilot, who's actually spearheading that. They don't even have a website. They have Instagram and I think Twitter and also Facebook that they're using to get out information. Razbam is very similar. Quite a few other people are also doing the same thing. So that's the way in which they're interacting with their fan base and other interested people looking for updates. So, speaking of Razbam, here are a couple of additional shots that you've been looking at of the Super Tucano. A lot of you expressed interest in that particular aircraft in the game, and remembering, that it is a propeller-driven aircraft. Would be one of the only, I think, modern propeller-driven aircraft in the game that is a combat aircraft. All of the other prop-driven aircraft are World War II birds, which, have their own merits, but it's nice to see a propeller-driven aircraft, and Razbam is working on other bits and pieces too for the assets pack, if you like, or the additional assets that will be part of that South Atlantic map that he is also working on, which is based around the Falklands campaign, and I know a lot of discussion came out about that as well, what would be available. So you're seeing some of those images as we speak. Obviously, very much a work in progress, all of this. So, where does it bring us here now with the other developers? In total, we have quite a few developers outside of Eagle Dynamics. They are producing maps, of course, they're producing modules, all in varying degrees of completion, as I've hinted at here, and some that actually have disappeared. Unfortunately, VEAO Studios, if you like, or VEAO, were producing the Hawk T1 light fighter. That's a British aircraft. That group have bowed out altogether. That was a couple of years ago. There was some disagreements over communication and cooperation between the two studios, and VEO decided to part ways with Eagle Dynamics, unfortunately. So that leaves us here with, of course, Ugra Media, which are producing maps for Normandy already, and Syria, which is pending release sometime at the end of summer, hopefully beginning of fall. AvioDev. Now, AvioDev, they are working on the Mirage F1. No word as to where they're at, but they have been, of course, extremely busy with the C101 Aviojet, which is a really nice module in the game, a couple of variants, and I know a lot of you have talked about that as a very fun jet. I had a little tinker with it. It's got a really good, if you want to delve into a little bit more how to fly properly, they've got some pretty decent and challenging tutorial missions with the Aviojet that will, keep you coming back and keep you busy. So worthwhile looking at if you don't want to necessarily get into a Gen 3, Gen 4 aircraft and just sort of muck about and kind of play at fighter pilot. And if you really want to kind of sit down and have a little bit more experience perhaps with a proper tutorial, they might be a group worth looking at. So now, one of the big boys in the list of players here will be Heatblur Simulations. Obviously, the F-14B has kind of stamped its mark on DCS World, and sort of a benchmark, really, for most of the other modules. The F-18, of course, is Eagle Dynamics is pick of the fleet at this time in terms of popularity, although the A10C, of course, cannot be snorted at in terms of its realism, obviously level of completion as well, and that's being reworked to be brought up to speed with the current graphics package that Eagle Dynamics has. But again, Heatblur have done a really nice job with this aircraft. They are, of course, working on the F-14A. They have stipulated quite clearly on their previous discussions about both aircraft that they will not release the F-14A until the F-14B is complete, which is pretty much a given. There's really not a heck of a lot left to do on that aircraft. There are some minor tweaks and adjustments being made, but generally speaking, it's probably one of the more complete aircraft that we have that's been released in the last wee while. And it's a damn good module, no question about that. Very, very popular. If you haven't checked out Growling Sidewinder's list of most, how would you call it, or best air-to-air aircraft in the game, the F-14 actually was rated by him as number 3. This gives you an idea of just how good of an aircraft it is, even though it does have a pretty old world or earlier generation avionics package within it. Nevertheless, it's still a hell of a lot of fun to fly, and there's some quirks with that, but there's also some benefits with it, which we won't go into just yet. So the F-14A, yeah, we're going to be seeing that, I think, soon. Remember that most of the base work has been done for that module because of the work with the F-14B. There's not a heck of a lot of difference between those two aircraft. It's largely to do with the engines and some equipment inside the cockpit, which will be adjusted once the F-14A comes out. Retroactively, I understand. And they're also working on the Forrestal class of aircraft carriers, which they had put on hold simply because the supercarrier had been released, and I guess they had kind of a gentleman's agreement, if you like, with Eagle Dynamics that they wouldn't release the Forrestal class just until the supercarrier had time to kind of bed itself in. And of course, we know that they're also responsible for the Viggen, which is a highly rated module as well, and very, very popular amongst many of you in the flight sim world. Decker Ironworks. They produced the JF-17 recently. It's still an early access, I think, aircraft. The module is, well, it's been highly praised by a lot of people. I've seen, going back to Growling Sidewinder, who rated it as number 2 on his list for air-to-air combat, which was a real surprise to me. Growling Sidewinder rated the number 1 aircraft as the F-16, which may also surprise some of you because there was some discussion about the F-16 in the last video. Yeah, it's worthwhile looking at that vid. It's not too long, and there are some surprises on there that I, in terms of the order and also, in terms of the characteristics of those particular aircraft. So, well worth a look. I was really surprised about this. I wasn't expecting this module to rate, but it has been given a very positive review. Even Grim Reapers too have talked about the aircraft as being quite well modeled, so worthy of a look. It's not one that really appeals to me at this time. I'm not really all that familiar with it. I just haven't gotten around to biting on it, but it's going to be hard to ignore if people keep rating it as highly as they have in the YouTube forums and the various videos that are available about it. So yeah, kind of an interesting one there. So, and of course they also do the Chinese assets packet as well, which are various assets which are a work in progress too. Leatherneck Simulations, which I have spelled that wrong on my notes here, which almost threw me off there. Leatherneck, which I believe are attached to Magnitude 3 in some way. I'm not sure which one is the parent company, but they're working on a variety of projects, and of course have produced the MiG-21 and the Crescent Eagle, so they're well established in the DCS world environment. They are working towards the F4U-1D Corsair World War II Warbird, which some of you mentioned and asked about. It's still a work in progress, and that is in part, I think, because it's being released as part of a package of assets, including the Essex class aircraft carriers and related ships and vehicles and other bits and pieces. So that's kind of cool. Their last update was in May of this year. No further hints yet at where things are at with that, so stand by. They are also working on the Vought Aeronautics F-8J Crusader. Now, Vought, of course, are also responsible for the Corsair, as mentioned above. So that's still very much preliminary, not a lot of new information about that. Remember, this was a May release of information, and they seem to be releasing information in quite long droughts between each piece of information. So again, keep your eyes peeled. I will update as I am able to, and when information is available. But again, not highly proactive in terms of producing lots of worthless information or hype information. It's just, hey, here's where we're at. Stand by for more. We are working on things. So it is what it is. All right, OctopusG, they brought us this sort of little stubby World War II aircraft, Russian-based aircraft. It is the I-16. They also do produce modules for Prepare 3D and also for Microsoft Flight Simulator 10. And yeah, so nothing new there really going on. As far as I can tell, hasn't been too many updates recently. Polychop, of course, I've talked about Polychop a couple of weeks ago. They're about to release the Kiowa, which is looking really, really good. Welcome addition to the game, of course, especially for chopper pilots. They do have the Gazelle in-game already. A lot of you had mixed opinions about the Gazelle. I own it. It's not a bad module. It's I haven't really endeared myself completely to helicopters just yet, but they do offer a different challenge and a cool way to fly, and presents itself some different challenges that you don't experience with fixed wing, and that's all cool. So that's good to kind of branch out and try something new. All right, another big heavy hitter in the DCS world genre amongst the third-party developers, of course, is Belsimtek, which many of you will be familiar with. They are good at producing modules, and they have a swag of them, probably the most, I think, outside of Eagle Dynamics themselves. And that includes the Huey, which many of you are familiar with and speak favorably of, the Mi-8, similarly, the F-86 Sabre, the MiG-15, and also the F-5E Tiger II, as well as the non-fidelity F-15 Eagle, the F-15C, which is part of the Flaming Cliffs bundle. And yeah, it's not a full clickable combat aircraft, just as an FYI, but it does get quite a lot of popular videos on YouTube. A lot of people like that aircraft, even though it's not the full fidelity module. And of course, Belsimtek are also working on they have actually completed the NS430 navigation software simulator for the Mi-8 and others. So lots of work being done by that particular studio. What's curious, and a lot of people have mentioned this before, there's so much excitement, so many people have asked for the Phantom, and Belsimtek haven't really. There's nothing going on with that. As far as I'm aware, and I could be wrong here, so correct me if I am, but I think basically that project has stalled or stopped or is not being worked on or has been sold off or what. But there hasn't been anything on that for at least 3 years or so on the website. And this was in reference to the F4E. No further announcements on that project. So I don't know if that one is true, that they have stopped working on it, or that there was a I don't know what, whatever is going on with that module. It seems to be on the back burner, or it's not being worked on, or it simply disappeared. I'm not aware of any announcements about it, and some of you may be. Let me know what you think. But that's kind of, a shame. And I know that a lot of people have speculated that the F4 was going to be one of the surprise aircraft that was going to be announced by Eagle Dynamics. At this stage, I don't know. I have no clue, unfortunately, what the surprise aircraft is going to be. There's no indication. Of course, it's meant to be a surprise. Otherwise, what's the point? But there's no indication if it's going to be an Eagle Dynamics product in-house, or if it's going to be a third-party development product external. So lots more speculation there. All right, that brings us pretty much to the end of the video here. So again, I just wanted to kind of flesh out some of the other developers here that are working on things that there is plenty of material for us to be excited about, even though we don't get necessarily frequent updates on pending modules. I know a lot of people have expressed some frustration about this and where things are at, but again, I think it's just part of this particular genre where a lot of these aircraft are a work in progress, if you like, are a work in progress, and it's difficult to give you tight timelines or specific timelines, especially if the developer themselves, in fairness, is also working through a lot of stuff. I think that's a fair criticism there. Not that I'm trying to pick fights with Eagle Dynamics, but if you are busy trying to repair the game engine, it's going to be different. It's going to be difficult, at least, to bring in third-party products. And if those third-party products don't talk or communicate properly with the game engine, because of the ongoing bugs or the other updates and things that are going on, which are evolving, then it's little wonder that it's difficult to be specific about some things that are pending or being worked on, and you are hoping to get them into, the game. But there are hiccups along the way, so to speak. So let me know your thoughts on that. Again, just an update, a continuation of those other developers there that I thought was worth mentioning. All right. Thanks for tuning in again, everybody. Thanks for all the likes and subscribes, as mentioned earlier. Helps keep the channel chugging along. Don't forget to keep flying out there. Stay safe. This is Prickly Hedgehog out. We'll see you again for next time. Cheers.